Welcome to the lab. Today we begin refactoring our application structure towards a model view controller architecture, and we begin by introducing models. Alright, so our current setup looks like this. We have an entity folder and a service folder. And our service folder has authentication and user right now. What we want to do in this one is to introduce models, so we have a contained place for our business logic. So let's go ahead and just rename entity to models. Yes, and then we need to update the package name. Great, and now you can see we basically have our model here, and then some helper function, helper structs, data structs to set up or to create and update a user. We want to get rid of those for now. And then if you go back into services and look at the user service right here, which is all of our application level logic, business logic that's being applied to the model. Let's just grab all of this. There we go. And then let's have our user service that these like model level methods can live on. User service. And our user service is going to be containing all of the dependencies, so the database. We're also going to be adding an authentication service. We have some validation that we're going to be adding as a dependency as well. So let's just go ahead and say database, user database. And then we're going to be having later on a auth service. Because we need to do some stuff when our user signs up in terms of like hashing and peppering their password. So let's just have an empty interface for now. And then we're also going to be needing our validation library, which is, let me see if I can find it. It's this one, invalid type. All right, that's because the import is bad. It's v10 that we're going to be using. So now I should be able to say validate, right? And then we just create a quick setup function. It's going to be returning a user service. So, and then we simply just grab all of our dependencies. Let go, please format. Nice. Yeah. Database, our service, and validator. There we go. Can basically get rid of this one. So let's start by adding our new user and our update user to. See, we have update user here and new user. Let's add them to as methods to our new service. So US service, there we go. It's going to be called new instead of new user. It's going to be accepting a user model, and we don't need the database to validator because they now live as dependencies under our user service struct, right? So this one is simply database. And let's tackle this one a bit later. See, we still here have two data points we need. We need the confirm password and we need the password. So let's just accept these as arguments because I don't really want them to live as fields on the user model. I want to be a little bit more careful when dealing with passwords. Go, validate the struct, and it's our validator. And then here, let's also say US database, insert user. Now we have almost everything done for the new method. We still have this hash and pepper password function that we have living on our or in our authentication service here, as you can see right here. Now, this service folder should act a little bit more as auxiliary services. If you want to do, like, for example, authentication, sending emails, I don't know, connecting to some service, some API, and then provide that as a wrapper around that API, something like that, right? So we can do the same thing as we did in our model by just saying authentication struct. And I don't believe this have any dependencies. We do have the hash password paper. So the password paper is just something that we add on top of the hash password to make it even harder to, if we do legal database. So this one will come from an environmental variable when we set up our authentication service. Authentication service. New authentication. Password and paper. There we go. And let's just add this as a method to it. So authentication, and let's export it. And now I deleted too much before. There's still a string. And then this one comes from the dependencies. What am I doing wrong here? I can't spell. There we go. Now we still have some other authentication functions that we can deal with in another PR, but for now I just want to show the idea behind the refactoring to models. We have also still imported entity, which of course now it's called models. And then our authentication service should be what we need for now. So let's grab this and then go up here and add it as a method to our dependencies. This is how we keep things a little bit more loosely connected. So basically our user model service tells other elements of our code what it needs, and then they have to confine or have to adapt to those needs. So we have our dependencies pointing in the same direction. They are pointing inwards toward the model, towards the business logic that is the driving force of our entire application. And then we can go down here and say, no, it's not under A, it's user service. Our service, don't have it, and delete the password paper. There we go. And now our new method is basically done. We have this thing right here, and this is related to how a validator uses custom validations. So this one would be moved into our main function. And then when we initialize the validator, we are going to be adding this one in. But for now we can just remove it. However, we do need to expose this one before. Yeah. So with that one, we can now in our setup function register this function, and then validator can use it. So now our new method looks nice. Let's just quickly update our user as well, and it's going to be pretty much the same thing. We're adding as method, and we now don't need user, and this one is simply also just going to be user. Dependency is gone. We no longer entity the user, we return just a user. Same thing as before. This one is going to be done in the setup, so we can just export it, and then we're going to be dealing with that later on. And again, let's just have our method accept these as arguments, parameters. Probably going to put arguments, right? Yeah. And then struct is the validate struct is going to come from this, and US database and node database alt service, of course, hash and pepper. And last thing, almost last thing, is to call the new database, and then here return the new user, right? So this is how our model service will look now. We are still, let me just, yeah, of course, there we go. We're still using entity. Let me just quickly remove that. There we go. So this is how our model service is going to be looking now. We have a central place for our business logic. Everything to do with users is going to be going through here. As we can see in our auxiliary services, we have something that can support whatever the business logic needs. And this can be, in this case, an authenticator service. It could also be a wrap around an API that provides some data. But the thing is, models should not know about anything outside of models. It's just business logic, business logic. And this way we can have like nice clean separation of concerns.